they did lose a ton of talent. And I want to start by saying too, like when they first hired Mick Cronin in 2019, I was
And we are back, episode 7 of the Get It Bucket podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, and my guy, Kevin Lucas. What is going on, my brother?
man, back at it. It's been a minute. Glad to be back. It's been a lot of action in the game recently. A lot of upsets, I guess you can say. A lot of everybody kind of losing. Actually, to be honest, it feels like. I love it. I think parity is a great thing. I think balance is a great thing. I think the biggest thing we've seen so far this season is that is no real dominant team yet, and it is a team that could arise. We'll talk about UConn later, which I think could be that team, but right now, like it doesn't look like any team is like head and shoulders above the rest, like a 2021 Baylor or 2018 Villanova. Like the playing field kind of level, man. So I love it, and I'm glad to be back with y'all talking college hoops, man.
Yep. Been a minute. Took the week off last week, like we was busy, moving and stuff. A lot of things going on, but a lot of things happening in the world of college basketball. And like you said, and I tweeted this out a couple of days ago. I'm like, yo, there's a lot of parity right now in college basketball. Like they make it might be Houston being the best team, or if you think UConn right now is the best team in the country, but for the most part, it's there's no undisputed team right now, and I think that's a good thing and all that in basketball. And it's been a lot of fun watching, all these teams. We think they're hot, and then boom, they lose, and it's just a lot of parity going on. A lot of teams we thought maybe weren't going to be that good this year, like a Purdue, and they coming around. Oh, they had a big win versus Duke and all that. They beat down my Blue Devils, man. That was tough. That was tough. Marquette beat down Baylor. That was a beat down and all that. So we seen a lot of things. But speaking of beat down, the last time we were on, this team I don't think had a loss. Now they went from number 1 to unranked, Kev, and that is the North Carolina Tar Heels. Now I'm not too upset that they're unranked and all that, being a Blue Devils fan and all that, but it it's tough times right now in down there in Chapel Hill. They're down. I think they've lost 4 in a row, and they don't play no damn defense. I think that's an understatement that they don't play defense. Like it is little to none playing defense, at North Carolina right now. So, like I said, number 1. Last time we talked, they were the number 1 team in the country, and a week and a half later, almost 2 weeks later, they are unranked. Unranked. And if you go to like the Ken Palms and all the websites and all that, some of them have them in the 30s. Like not just now it's 26, 20, like in the 30s, 40s and all that. So what the hell is going on in North Carolina? It kind of feels like what happened in the and listen, we knew like why they were the number 1 team coming in, right? We understood people's logic, but we were had our like skepticism on Carolina because we can't forget the first half of what happened. Like there was a point they were on the bubble, right? They were a bubble team, and that doesn't just go away. Like we didn't forget that. We remember that, and then they bringing back a lot of that same core, right? So we still remember that, even though they end up in the national championship and all that, and probably should be hoisting another national championship. But it's tough right now in Carolina right now. A lot of frustration between the fan base and just with Hubert Davis, people getting little testy with him and all that. So, Kev, what's going on with the Tar Heels?
It's a lot, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, we touched on it a few episodes ago. I don't remember which one, but like when we talked about it, I said like you can't really base too much off of the previous season because it's a completely different squad. Even though, of course, they brought back a good crop of their talent, they brought back I think 4 or 5 starters from last year's team. Like, it's still a different team because you don't have a guy like Brady Manick. You're still trying to figure out how to utilize Pete Nance in the best way. And when I watch him, like that Virginia Tech game, like even though Armando Bacot didn't play, I don't really judge Virginia Tech because you're an ACC fan. Like to me, Virginia Tech is one of the toughest venues in the ACC. Like that, they're upset city out there. So, and I love
Yeah.
Mike Young. I think we'll talk about him down the line, but I honestly think like honestly, you can make a case that Mike Young is the best coach in the ACC right now. People don't want to talk about that, but he has a
Yep.
case. We'll talk about that later though. But
Hmm.
with Carolina, like you said, defensively, it's not there. They're not in sync. They don't communicate. They don't trust each other. On the other end, offensively, bro, it is what they're doing offensively. I'm not gonna lie, setting basketball back at least a decade because, and I hate to say it like that, but I'm just being honest. Like, I love Caleb Love coming out of high school, coming out of St. Louis. He went to Christian Brothers, which is a big time program in the Lou. I thought he was gonna be a dog, and he has been a dog. He is a dog, but man, his shot selection terrible, dog. Like I can't like when people it was so many people when they were playing Alabama and that game went to 4 overtimes, it was so many people telling me to turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. I was like, I can't do it. And I went back and watched the highlights like Caleb Love's shot selection is egregious. And it's not even just Caleb Love either because RJ Davis hasn't been as steady as I initially thought he
No, he hasn't been good.
and just the entire team, like it just doesn't seem like they trust each other. They don't give when Armando's playing, they don't give him enough post touches, which is insane because he's one of the most dominant interior bigs in the entire country. And I'm just looking at like it's a lack of ball movement, it's no fluidity. It feels like nobody just trusts each other. And it's really just bad basketball right now, man. That's why I said you gotta kind of hold your horses when it comes to teams having success from the previous season. Like, for example, UCLA last year. You know, they went to the Final Four in 2021. They come back, and honestly, UCLA was still good last year, but they just were not the same team, like at all. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's different teams. That's just how the game goes. And getting to a Final Four, as we all know, is not easy. So I am worried about Carolina because even in their few wins that they haven't even looked that good. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, they
And we
haven't looked,
talked about that, right? We talked
yeah,
about like Carolina's winning, but it's very underwhelming performances.
exactly. And so I just want to see them again trust each other more. I think that's gonna be the biggest thing. Right now, it's a complete lack of trust. Pete Nance looks like the only guy that's kind
Yeah.
of settled in, but that can't be the case when you have a team that brought back a majority of their players. And they need some more production from the bench too, because they can't just keep riding five deep and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Sadly, DeMarco Dunn, I want to say he broke like a bone in his hand. He's gonna be gone for a little bit, but they need contributions from other guys, whether it's Seth Trimble, Tyler Nickel, Puff Johnson. They need some type of other production because right now, like just relying on the starters is not going to be the answer, especially with Armando being out for however long he is out. Hopefully, it's not too long. You're missing that post presence because he's the only real post presence. And another thing too is like I like Leaky Black, but if I'm being honest, Leaky Black's been the same player ever since he stepped on campus for the most part. Yeah, he's gotten a little bit better as a defensive player. He's a hell of a defensive player.
Yeah. That's
But
a good.
as a 4, 5 year player up there, you should have developed some type of offensive game. And it's
He ain't
not
got
there right
nothing.
now. And
He ain't got
that's the problem.
nothing.
Like he's literally as great as he is on the other end, he's nowhere to be found on that offensive end. And that is a huge concern. So right
He
now,
has
man, like
18 points in this 4 game losing streak. Not a game, 9.5 to total. 18 points.
and that's something we need to really talk about too. And I'll be trying to tell people about this. When it comes to recruiting, North Carolina hasn't had a big time wing player in a
Yeah.
minute. I think that's kind of been haunting them because Nazir Little was good. Of course, he's still in the NBA, I believe, with the Blazers right now,
Yeah.
doing his thing. But like outside of that, like when it comes to wings, like they're not recruiting these high level wings. Like Justin Jackson was a 4 year player. You know what I'm saying? He was good. He's a legend there, but that's a 4 year player. You need a one and done type dude that can come in and be effective. And Kentucky kind of had the same issue, even though they got Justin Edwards coming in next year. But wings help you win games, bro. Big physical wings that can score and defend at a high level. In the NBA too, especially in the NBA, like you need them wings. So I'm concerned with North Carolina, man. And I was always skeptical of them going this season, but they got to figure it out, man, because otherwise it could get real ugly before it gets any better.
It feels like, and it's crazy to say that a team that just went to the national championship is losing some of that aura. But I feel like they're losing some of that aura because you just mentioned like recruiting and all that. Like they're not recruiting at the level that you think North Carolina should be recruiting at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, when these guys leave, right? We assume everyone's going to be leaving. Like, who do they have that's going to be able to control? Like, we know with Duke, like next year's class, like even if let's just say Lively leaves, even though he's been up and down, but Lively leaves, Whitehead leaves. Next year they got some dogs coming in next year. You know, they got some dogs coming in next year with Carolina. I mean, they got one kid, but it's like they're not recruiting the same way. And I want and I just talked about this on a podcast I was on, and we talked about like teams that lose legendary coaches, right? And it's tough to be the first one, the
Mm-hmm.
first coach after. Like we were talking, it's like whoever has to replace Nick Saban at Bama, good luck. Like good luck. Because if you ain't winning, you ain't getting to the national championship, then it's a problem. Right. And we still got to see what John Shire does at Duke, because he can have the same. We could be talking about him next year in 2 years. Like, yo, like John Shire, what's up? But,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it's crazy to think that, but like maybe they lost a little bit of that Carolina mystique, and like I said, they struggled last year. Like we can't forget that. They did struggle last year, and it just seems like it's coming, full head again this year. And where last year you saw a place where they can get better. I don't know if that's the same case. Now the ACC is garbage.
Yeah,
so
emphasis on that.
so like that's why, like, and then we're gonna talk about Duke a little bit. That's why I'm maybe more optimistic now with Duke, because the ACC is so bad. But I don't know. I don't know if I could see, I don't see, and a lot of these shows I'm watching, they're like, do they even like each other? Like, people are
Man,
like, and I'm like, and you watch it, you're like, uh, are they rocking with each other? Like, you wouldn't think this is a team that went to the net that should have won the national championship. Let's be real. They
up
blow the biggest
15.
lead in national championship history.
Mm-hmm.
Like they should be the national champions, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in Hubie's first year, he should have won a national championship. So it's crazy to think just less than a year later, that we're talking about them like not making the tournament possibly. Like I think that's crazy to think, but like where last year I thought they could get better, this year I don't know. I don't know, because the defense is bad. That's bad
Bad.
defense. That's bad. And then Baycott, we don't know with him. And like you said, like a lot of the players they expected to help them out kind of been disappointed this year. And like I don't know. It just feels like they may be losing, because then I still see Duke recruiting these these monsters these next few years. In 2025, they may get the boozers. That's so like I don't know about Carolina, man. They may be losing some of that mystique. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not even me talking with the Duke hat on. No, it's just a feeling, and like you hear it from all these analysts. They're like, what's I don't know. Last year was last year. This year, they don't. I don't even know if they're vibing with each other, right? I don't know. I think we're seeing some leaks, in this system. I don't know. I don't know. It's very. But like you mentioned before, it's not just because they lost 4 in a row that we're saying this. We were talking about when they were 5-0. Like, they're not really the best team in the country, right? It's just because they're number one already that they're just going to keep them there because they haven't lost. But I mean, their best win maybe against the College of Charleston, and Charleston's actually not that bad this year. But like they almost lost to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, it's a weird year for Carolina, and they still might make the tournament and all that because the AC is where it is. But I don't know. Is the mystique gone?
I feel like we've kind of been questioning that for a few years now. Even with Roy, like the thing with Roy, like in these past few years, was that he wasn't really adapting to the game and the landscape where it's at now. He still loves his big man, which is fine. Carolina is always going to be they love to feed the bigs, they love to rebound, they love to be tougher than everybody else. But like it wasn't working because remember a couple years ago they had Walker Kessler, Day'Ron Sharp, Garrison Brooks, and they had somebody else. I forget who
I forgot they had Walker Kessler. Yeah, he
and
transferred. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, bro, that's not how you win like that. And of course, this is North Carolina. Like, he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, like, we know come March, it's all about guard play. That's why you've had guys like Joel Berry and Marcus Page, and the list goes on and on and on. But it's like now, like, yeah, when Caleb's on, he's on. But when he's off, it's ugly to watch, man. And so,
but even
like I
when
said,
he's on, it's like it takes like 30 shots to get 30.
exactly 30 shots to get 30 points, man. Like, come on, bro. You gotta.
Right? Didn't
Eventually,
that Bama game he took like 35, like he had 36 points, I think, but it was like on 36 shots. So like a point per shot. When you taking 36 shots and get 36 points, that's actually not good.
it's like,
you
man,
know?
just trusting your teammates, man. You trusting your teammates, that makes everything a lot more easier. So we'll see where they go from here. Like you said, the ACC is down bad outside of your Blue Devils, in Virginia, and it's I think
Virginia
NC
Tech
State
too.
might be a sneaky team too, and Virginia Tech. Let me not forget the Hokies, but outside of that, I ain't gonna lie, ACC is not it right now.
No, it's definitely down this year. The ACC is definitely down this year, and it's let's. I know we're going to talk about your Spartans and the Blue Devils, but let's talk about that team from Blacksburg. Let's talk about the Hokies and all that because I just talked about them on a pod too about being maybe the most underrated team in the country, and
Hmm.
it always feels like Virginia Tech is that team like every other year they feel like they beat Duke like at home. You go to Blacksburg and it's like
Hmm.
it's tough, even in college football too. Like it's just something about Blacksburg. There's a vibe there. There's definitely a vibe there. And this year, there seems they've, we talked about Carolina not continuing their success from last year. Virginia Tech has done that. They won the ACC, people won forget they won the ACC tournament and all that, and it seems like they're just a few buckets away from beating the College of Charleston. College of Charleston, we're bringing it back up. College of Charleston, solid team, so that loss doesn't look as bad as it may seem, from the outside. So a few buckets away, and they're undefeated right now, and they just whoop Dayton.
Yep.
They whoop Dayton. Whoo, they put a beat in Dayton, man. I might say that for a different show, but Dayton has definitely struggled mightily this year so far. But the Hokies, man, it seems like on both ends of the court, they're just really solid. One of those teams that just very well balanced, and they defend the three good, they shoot the three pretty solid and all that. So what's going on in Blacksburg? What's clicking right now for them?
I mean, first I want to say that I haven't spoken on this yet, but like, if you know me, like, I love Mike Young. Mike Young to me, I said it before we hopped on. Like, I honestly think Mike Young is probably the best coach in the ACC right now. And I know, it's a couple guys in there that that's nice. Like Steve Forbes is a hell of a coach at Wake Forest. Shire is still improving, but he's looking like he knows what he's doing. Obviously, you can't count out Hubert. Of course, you can't count out Leonard Hamilton. But to me, like, when it comes to just purely X's and O's and freeing up shooters and his teams being consistent, Mike Young has been doing it for a long time. Like, he was at Wofford for a long time. They had some
Long
really good
time.
teams. Like, they was playing Kentucky competitive a couple years ago in the NCAA tournament. Like,
Yeah,
he
that last
knows
year he was there, they won like what 30 games, something like that.
exactly. He knows exactly what he's doing. Again, when it just comes to purely X's and O's, I think you can make a case he's the best coach when it comes to that. Like, me personally, my favorite coach when it comes to X's and O's are Mike Young, Greg McDermott at Creighton, and Matt Painter at Purdue. Like, those guys are geniuses at just freeing up their players, making life easier for their guys. And he's just done a hell of a job. You look at this roster, like Justin Mutz has been one of the best transfers in the country the past couple years. He came over from Delaware a couple years ago. He's been that guy. Hunter Couture, knockdown shooter. He was actually originally supposed to go to Wofford with Mike Young before Mike Young took the job in Blacksburg. He followed into Virginia Tech. That move looks like it's paying off. Sean Padula, excuse me, one of the most underrated point guards in the country. Steady, consistent, tough, never gets too high, never gets too low. He just knows how to play the game the right way. Darius Maddox, another one that I'm looking out for. I think he's only going to get better and better and better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they just play an excellent style of basketball. It's not too selfish. They always swing the ball to find the open man. A lot of dribble penetration. They collapse the defense. Like, if you like basketball and you like purely basketball, not just the highlights, like, watch Virginia Tech play. And so, like, everything that they do is just so fundamentally sound. And they could be a realistic threat to honestly win the ACC this year. So I'm definitely watching out for them, man. I love everything that Coach Young is doing up there so far.
Oh yeah, they could definitely win. They could definitely win the ACC because essentially it's going to be between them, Virginia, and Duke, right?
Mhm.
Maybe NC State's in there, but definitely. I mean, it just seems like everything's clicking right now, and they could easily be undefeated, and they got some really good wins. really good wins of late, and they play Oklahoma State next, and then I think if one or two more games before we get into ACC play, which can't wait to get into conference play. Conference play is going to be a lot
Mhm.
of fun and all that. But what do we feel about North Carolina State? How we like North Carolina State?
I like him, man. I'm not gonna lie. Traquavion Smith is. You haven't
Lottery
watched him,
pick.
man.
He's a
Yeah, if you
lottery
haven't
pick.
watched
I
him,
thought he could have been
yeah,
a first round pick last year had he went to the
exactly.
draft. Like he could have. I know a lot of people that had him rated as high as like top 15 and all that, and he wound up coming back, and that could be a very smart decision by the young man because he could easily be in the lottery right now. I have him in the lottery right now. I think he's just that good, and he's a big reason why I think people believe in an NC State.
And you could have made a case that he probably would have been the best point guard in last year's draft too. Like that's how good he is. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like I was shocked that he went back to school, like because I thought he was guaranteed, like you said, to be lottery. Like I thought that was a guarantee. And so I mean,
Yep.
he could really only boost his stock because there's no way it's dropping, especially the way he's playing. The way he played against Kansas down in the Bahamas was special. But like just the rest of this team, like Jarkel Joyner coming over from Ole Miss has been huge. Shout out to Walker. He's been doing his thing. DJ Burns, another guy that I kind of really didn't expect too much from, but he's like an undersized big, but he just knows where to be at the right time when it comes to rebounding the ball. Super effective. Like the Wolfpack are a sneaky good team, man. I never count out Coach Keats because he always has been pretty good at assembling talent. He's had some off the court issues when it comes to injuries and just guys leaving that have kind of impacted his program. Like Manny Butler is doing his thing right now for Thad Modern at Butler right now, but like this is another really sneaky team, man. It's Tobacco Road. You already know it gets lit over there, so I'm watching out for the Wolfpack, man. I think they can do something in the ACC this year.
Yeah, and if Tregavion gets back on that scoring spree he had in the beginning of the season, he had a little bit of
Mm,
some down scoring games, but had a big game against Coppin State. He gets back to that, he's gonna do some things, and he had some good games again. I remember when they came to Cameron last year, and he stood out. I was like, oh, this guy's like, if they
player.
had more talent, they probably beat us that game. Like they probably beat us, and he was a big reason why they were in that game. So NC State could definitely be a sleeper team in this conference. So let's talk about let's go to the Big Ten. Let's go to the Big Ten. Let's talk about your boys. Let's talk about Sparty. You know, how we feeling about Sparty. It's up and down, and I think we expected that this season from
Yep,
Sparty and all that. So just give me your evaluation so far since the last time we were on in this little stretch. With Sparty, they got a big win yesterday. Big
yep.
win yesterday. So talk to me.
Man, honestly, like I've been impressed, man. Like even though we've had some tough losses, like we definitely should have beat Northwestern at the crib, but they're kind of like as much
First
as
of
I
all right, before you go,
go
it
ahead,
cost,
yeah.
it cost me money. That's supposed to be a lock, bro. Northwestern. Let's be real. Come on, man. You cost me
It,
money,
it,
man.
it
Cost
is,
me
but
money. I thought that was the lock out of the whole parlay. I was like, oh, Michigan State got this. This is easy money. I bet it on other games that are more riskier. I was like, oh, I'm like, all right, hit. I'm like, what's
but
going
see,
on? What's going? Oh my God, they lost.
but
I
see,
was
that's the
sick.
thing though, is that it's like how good teams always have that one team that's kind of like their kryptonite.
Yep.
Northwestern has been that for us. Like every year, it feels like we just always. It's like how Rutgers is to Indiana. Like we're like that, and I think Rutgers is clearly a better program than Northwestern. Trust me, I know that. But for some reason, they just like this dude Boo Booey just knows how to get under our skin. And I think AJ Hogarth, they said on the broadcast, like 1-3 in his career versus Northwestern, which is sad for me to say, but I mean, I didn't put too much into it. Like, it was an ugly loss and it was embarrassing, but it is what it is. We've lost to them for the past. Even when we had Cassius Winston, like they would always give us dog fights. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They're just that one team that just knows how to play us better than anybody else in the league. But we got blown out to Notre Dame in South Bend, which I wasn't really expecting. Cormac Ryan, I think, had like 20 points in the first half alone. And I wasn't too upset by that. It was our first road game. Them first road tests kind of always tell you where you're at as a team. And I thought that was a good environment. Missing Jaden Akins and Malik Hall, like we're already not a deep team as it is. So missing two key rotational players, two that are both, just as good to be starters. One already is, but I think the other started last night. Like you got to kind of make changes. And so I think the biggest thing is that last night, which it finally happened, I've been saying it, like when you lose guys like that, other guys have to step into different roles. Like AJ Hogard, he can no longer just be a facilitator slash point guard. Like he has to
Mhm.
take on the scoring load now. And he had a career high 23 points last night at Penn State. He's from the state of Pennsylvania, so he took it personal, which I expected. But I like where we're at right now. I believe we're 6-4. We should be fine. We got a stretch where we played 2 conference games. We're 1-1. We're gonna play some non-conference games. Heading in. I think we play only 3 games for the rest of the year, which is perfect. Get some rest. Get our guys back. Malik Hall should be back around Christmas time. So I like the spot that we're in. The Big Ten is tough. It's a couple teams like Wisconsin I want to talk about later when it comes to surprise teams. Iowa, Rutgers, Purdue. I know we'll talk about like the Big Ten is good. I think we're right there in the mix to really make some noise this year, as I expected.
Yeah, you guys are gonna be all right. I mean, some of your law, like we talk about the Gonzaga loss, like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a toss up. Like you guys could have won that. Bama won. Probably the Notre Dame loss was probably the one. Like, all right,
For sure.
we you got us. And
Yeah.
so and you got a couple. You got some cupcakes coming up. So that'll spice up the win loss record and all that. That we know of. So you never know. You never know. This year, college basketball. Might
Yeah.
take that back. I don't want to bring that bad juju to you guys, but before we get into to Big Ten play. But that's another thing. The Big Ten. I think we talked about how like we were a little skeptical beginning of the year, like okay, Indiana, Michigan State's still gonna be in there. You can never count out Sparty and all that. And maybe a few other teams here and there, but Big Ten. I mean, when Rutgers, we're talking about Rutgers. Rutgers is. I mean, last year Rutgers was solid too. They had a squad with Harper Jr. He was a
Yep.
baller for them and all that. But Rutgers, they put it down to Indiana. They had a close game versus Miami. That was good. Close losses. I mean, they can a couple bounces of basketball. We might be talking about Rutgers being undefeated and ranked and all that. So the Big Ten, man, are they for real? Like, because there's a Purdue beat down on my Blue Devils and all that, and Indiana beat down on North Carolina and all that, even though they just took the L to Rutgers and all that. But people, Trace Jackson Davis is a baller, possibly player of the year candidate. He one who came back, and it looks like he's improved on his game and all that. So how are we feeling about the Big Ten overall? Are we buying? Let's essentially do this. Let's buy or sell. Are we buying or selling the Big Ten right now?
I'm a buy, and that's no bias, no pun intended. Like, I truly believe that the issue with the Big Ten, like a lot of people like to knock the Big Ten because consistently we put in the most teams in the NCAA tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people think like, oh, they never make it past. The past 2 years, they've struggled. I will not admit that. I will not fail to admit that. Like,
Of
it,
course, yeah.
it's been a struggle. Like teams haven't advanced like they should. But again, the reason we love the tournament is because of the unpredictability. And like, even if you put 9 teams into the tournament per se, it's a chance that all 9 teams make it out the first weekend, and it's just as greater a chance that all 9 teams lose in the first weekend. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
understand that, like, people knock the Big Ten because they haven't won a national championship in 20 something years, which is fine. But it's like national championships don't just fall off trees. Like, let's be honest here. Like, it's not like anybody just winning national championships year in and year out. So, like, my big thing with the Big Ten too is that when you have these bigs, for instance, like a Kofi Coburn, Hunter Dickinson, even Zach Edey to an extent, these bigs come March time, they struggle to guard in space. And it's not because they suck or anything like that. It's just because being that big, it's hard to have that lateral quickness to guard some of the top guards in the country. Like, what is Zach Edey supposed to do against a guy like Tyrese Hunter or Marcus Sasser? Let's be
Can't do
real
nothing.
here.
Yeah, you
You know what
can't
I'm
do
saying?
nothing.
And as great as those guys are on the other end, it's like that kind of holds the Big Ten back. But with that being said, the reason that I'm buying the Big Ten is because of my Spartans. I think Izzo's done the best job at carrying the conference. But the Fighting Illini and Champaign, Brad Underwood, like I'm not a big Brad Underwood fan myself, but I think this team is different because of the freshmen that they have between Jaden Epps, who I think is going to be a star down the line.
Star.
Sky Clark, really good. Sincere Harris has changed multiple games
RJ
this season.
Melendez.
That's his defense. RJ Melendez, Terrence Shannon's playing good.
Oh,
Matthew
he
Mayer,
was
Matthew
that
Mayer.
second half against Texas. Like he was
Yep.
the reason why, because he didn't do nothing in the first. I think he literally had 0 points in the first half,
Yeah.
and then he just took over in the second half in overtime.
And they have so many different ways that they can beat you. Coleman Hawkins, that's your guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
I talked about him big time last year with the guy I'm actually at the Hive on my podcast coming up,
mhm.
Steven, and we had talked about Coleman Hawkins, and he was a backup last year. You know, he was a backup, and we were like, yo, he's got some skill. Like he could shoot the thing. He's a long, 6'11" dude, and block some shots, rebound. He's fluid. This is someone that if he gets minutes, and when we're seeing that this year.
And I'll be honest, like they probably should have lost that game to Texas a few nights ago in MSG because Texas held the lead for like majority of that game, and
Mhm.
Marcus Carr kind of struggled. Tyrese Hunter was cramping, which is not the first time that's
Yeah,
happened
there
this
was a
season.
lot of cramping for Texas. A lot of cramping.
Yeah, so Texas probably should have won that game, but still, like the resolve that Illinois showed, the fight, like that hasn't really been there early in Brad Underwood's tenure. Recently, it has with guys like El Sumu and Trent Frazier, but like early on, it was never like that. So, like, I just think when it comes to guard play, the Big Ten has it when it comes to Michigan State and Illinois specifically, and I think that's gonna translate well later down the season. So, I'm definitely buying the Big Ten, man.
Yeah, the Big Ten is definitely, like I said, they're the teams that we didn't even expect to be as good are good, and then we got some surprising teams, like the Rutgers and all that playing really good. But Illinois, man, it seems like you know they lost a lot last year, and then but the Terrence Shannon, man, I mean, another guy that that been in the draft when we talked about this. He's been in the draft, sphere for the last 2 years. It feels like, and he looks good. He looks like he's gonna be a pro, and is really he's done well. And I think he to beat Texas, his former coach,
Hmm.
that had to feel good. That had to feel good. He was feeling himself,
For
and it looked like
sure.
he was feeling himself after that win, versus former coach and all that. So yeah, I Illinois is good, and okay, might have to buy into some stock in the Big Ten. They're looking real good right now, and all that. All right, I want to go a little bit back to the EC. I want to talk about the Blue Devils and all that. And I've been kind of up and down on them. The play hasn't been great, but it seems like since the last time we talked, they've looked a lot better. Definitely have looked a lot better. Getting their guys. However, Derek Lively looks a lot more healthier. You know, Derek Whitehead is coming back. He looked good in his last game, coming off the bench right now, but still he's looking better, and I think that's going to be really huge. Tyrese Proctor's played a lot better, being more efficient and all that. So for the Blue Devil, then Shire obviously, taking over, and it seems like he's getting a little bit more comfortable as being a coach and all that. So, you know, how are you feeling about Duke right now? And because I feel more optimistic. I feel a lot more optimistic. They lost to Purdue. They got spanked by Purdue, but the last three games they played Ohio State, Boston College, and Iowa last night. Last game, and they beat Iowa. Played good, really good against Ohio State. You know, and beat down Boston College. So how we feeling about Duke Blue Devils right now?
Man, like the last time we talked about it, I told you like I've been impressed so far, and I like what I'm seeing from them. They're still working in Derek Whitehead. Jeremy Roach has been the good leader that everybody expected him to be. Kyle
Hmm.
Filipowski looking like a lottery pick. Derek Lively starting to figure things out for himself. I think the biggest key is not Derek Whitehead. It's not Lively. I think the biggest key that's really going to put Duke from a good team to an elite team is Tyrese Proctor, man. Like
100%.
he is still raw. He should still be a senior in high school right now. He
That's
decided to
that's what people
reclass.
forget, right? He reclassified.
Exactly. He came over from Australia, and I truly believe that he can be that extra scorer to take a lot of pressure off of Jeremy Roach. Because the thing with Jeremy Roach right now, and you got to give him credit for this too, but you don't really want him to do this, but you have to give him credit for it, is that not only does he have to be that leader and that point guard and be stable, but he also has to get buckets too right now. And I
Mhm.
think when Tyrese Proctor starts to figure out his spots where he can score from, where he's most comfortable, again, it's going to take you guys from a good team to an elite team. And then, like, I like it. Like, the defense has been solid. Most times that you guys step on the court, you're going to have longer, faster, bigger athletes. I think that's most of the reason why y'all beat Iowa was just y'all just ran up on them. Y'all just stomped them. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, Chris Murray didn't really do anything.
yeah, and he's hurt right now. It came out he's injured. He's not going to play tonight versus Iowa State, so that's kind of unfortunate. But Regardless of like Duke has really impressed me, man. Because I was not too high on this team. Y'all know me. I was skeptical on John Shire, but they pretty much made me eat all my words, and I'm honestly excited to see where it keeps going because, again, man, like it's okay to give freshmen time to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't just happen in game one. You just seen Keontae Georgia like last week went crazy versus Gonzaga, and I kind of had a
Mhm.
feeling he was going to break out any game because
Matter of time.
that's just how it goes. You know what I'm saying? You can't just expect guys like a Tyrese Maxey to come out the gate and drop 30 in the Garden. Like that's just not how it works. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes some guys it clicks at different times. You know, we're all different.
Yep.
So I like this Duke team. I think the ceiling can only keep growing and growing. And I think that's why you guys should be excited, you know, because this team they haven't put it all together yet. Like they're still figuring out. And that is a scary recipe, not just for the ACC, but especially come March time when y'all make the tournament.
Yeah, and like I said, Therese Proctor playing good has been good. Mark Mitchell playing more consistent and all that. And like I said,
Yes.
once you get Derek back to going, he's to me ultimately, and I know Fukowski has been really good and probably better than what people expected and all that. But to me, once we get Whitehead going and getting him healthy, breaking him, and I like the way they're breaking him in. They're not just like, hey, go play 30 minutes and start. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
no, and they've done this with a lot. They did it with AJ Griffin and all that too. Like they've done this with a lot of guys who have come in hurt and all that. Like they just like they did with Harry Giles too back a few years back. Like Harry Giles came in was number one recruit and all that, but they're like, no, you're gonna have to. You got to get healthy. We're gonna get you right. You got to get right, and that they've done a good job with that. And Derek last game against Iowa definitely looked like he was, he was hitting shots. He was looking like the athlete we all saw in high school and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a matter of time. So I think that's given me more confidence. Like, okay, I was a little up and down with them, but it's like I think this last 3 game stretch, I really felt good, with them. And Derek Lively's finding being more comfortable in his role and all that was huge and all that, maybe a little less Ryan Young. Listen, I love Ryan. I love the way his this big goofy ass and all that. Like, but my man takes like 15 seconds to get ready to post up, and then he's one of those dudes that just does the and like yo, my man, you can't. It's not like you a jumper where you just. So I love his energy and all that, but like sometimes when he's in the game, I'm like, my man's gonna exactly what's gonna happen. You gonna post it up. You're gonna take 10, 15 seconds. And you're gonna travel.
Yep.
He does it every. Feel like he does it every possession. But I mean, you just love his energy and all that. But you know, it's Roach is also man. He's very important to this team and scoring and his outside shooting and his penetration and all that. I think everything's going to come together. I think everything's going to come together. These last few games have definitely made me feel good about them.
And I want to say real quickly too, you hit on the other guy that I was high on that I think is starting to really put it together. Mark Mitchell, because like early in the season, he was settling for a lot of jumpers, and that's not his game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think preferably he should just sit in the corner and be ready because he's been pretty good in catch and shoot, threes from the corner. But everywhere else he's kind of struggled. But like a lot of it was just he was just standing around. Like you got to be active sometimes. Sometimes you can set a flare screen, set a back screen. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Help get your guys open and like you don't have to necessarily force shots just because you're open. Like yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you could take a one dribble pull up. So
Mm-hmm.
I think him putting it together too. Like he's another guy just like Proctor, who I think are X factor guys, and I think they're going to help you guys out a lot throughout the course of the season.
100%, 100%. The last few games, I mean, he's had double-digit games. I think what 15 points or 17 points in the last 2 games. Both games. So he's looked real good, and that's key. It's key. He's
Yep.
getting to the basket and all that. So I think if we can get consistency from Proctor, Mitchell, and then you get Derek and Lively ramped up as they get healthier, I think it feel good once we get into ACC play. I'm a lot more confident than I was the last time we talked about this. Talked about them after they took that L to Purdue and all that. So we got a big injury. We got a big injury on the SEC for old Pigsui in Arkansas. They lost a guy that seems like is a freak of nature, just dunking on people. He had a superior dunk, a few weeks ago and all that. But Trevon Brazile is out. I think he has an ACL, right?
Yeah, yep,
ACL,
sadly.
so he's out for the season. So let's talk about the impact of that injury for this Arkansas team that we like and we feel like can be a team that can not just win the SEC but can win the national championship because they have such you know they obviously have the they're freshmen and all that. So how much does this impact Arkansas going forward? Because this is a obviously, and Ricky Council too. I forgot about my guy Ricky Council. He's a baller too. But how much does this impact Arkansas?
Man, I hate to say this is huge. Like, and I think their fan base knows it. I think Eric Musselman knows it. I think the team knows it. Like, this dude was literally, honestly, he was probably the biggest X factor in the country because what he does is something that you just can't find anywhere. He's like he can
Hmm.
play. Not only can he play multiple positions, but especially at that five spot where he is a legit 6'10", but he's built more like a forward. Like he could guard bigger guys and he could guard wings. So you could play small with him or you can play big with him. You know what I'm saying? And like losing a guy like that, man, it just sucks because you watching that Creighton game, even though they lost, the things that he was able to do to Ryan Kalkbrenner, who was one of the best rim protectors in the nation, to be able
Hmm.
to bring him out the paint and make him actually move his feet and actually have to guard in space.
Shooting threes. He made I think like a couple 3-4 3-pointers
Yeah,
that game.
like that's invaluable, man. And now you're gonna have to, Musk loves that transfer portal. He brought in some guys. He brought in the Mitchell twins from Rhode Island. He brought in Jalen Graham from Arizona State. You still got Kamani Johnson who gave him good minutes for San Diego State. Like you're gonna have to resort back to your bench. And so like it sucks just because like again, this was a dude that NBA scouts were drooling over. I think the
Ooh.
NBA game is so prepared to have him. Like he's gonna be a player, man. I'm wishing him nothing but a speedy recovery. Sending him nothing but positivity. Like he's gonna be a hell of a player. I don't know what his future holds when it comes to does he go back to Arkansas next year? Does he put his name into the NBA draft? Whatever it may be, I'm still wishing him the best. But as much as I love Arkansas, that's a huge blow to that program, and it sucks because you just never. We all know injuries is one of the worst parts of sports, and you just never want to see guys go down. And yeah, man. So like Nick Smith, Anthony Black, Ricky Council, like you said, they're gonna have to pick up the pieces. And I'll never count out Muss, man. Like Muss is probably my
Mhm.
favorite coach in the country. I think to me, he is the best coach in the country. So I'm not gonna count them out by any means. And I think they'll be able to kind of weather the storm, but Musk gonna have to really get in his bag to figure this one out because again, like that dude, he just does so much that you just can't replace that. And honestly, he's literally one of one. If I'm being honest, like
Yeah.
there's not too many guys like him around the country, if any at all. So again, man, just wish him a speedy recovery and nothing but positivity, man. So hopefully he heals up soon.
His ability, to have paint presence is crucial. But what he can do on the offense side, take guys inside, but also take and especially college bigs that
Yep.
especially the bigs we have now, to take those bigs out of the paint and be able to knock down a three. I think he was shooting maybe close to 40% from three. So he was shooting at a nice clip and all that. So it's like that's a huge loss. I don't know if Makai Mitchell can. He's not a shooter. So I
Yeah.
mean that's hurts. That might be one of the biggest losses of the season for this for any team.
Yep.
And I feel like he was coming on, and like you said, that Creighton game, like he went off. Right? I know they lost, but he was the standout, of that game because people were like, whoa, look at this kid. I remember dating you up like people are gonna fall in love with him. Teams are good. NBA scouts gonna be like, what? He's probably a taller version of like a John Collins or an Obi Toppin, like and all that, and shooting ability. So that's a tough loss for Arkansas. Can they? Do you think they're gonna be all right, or we may see this affect them more? Not now, but maybe down the line when we get to like the tournament time and all that.
I think they're gonna be all right just because one, you have Eric Musselman. Again, I'm not ever gonna count out, but I think Muss is one of the, like I said, like he's literally one of the best coaches in the game. He's to me, I think he's undoubtedly top five. So that's that. And on top of that, like Nick Smith is back, and I don't even think we've seen the best of him. Ricky Council has been a surprise that I did not expect whatsoever. Anthony Black is gonna continue to be Anthony Black. Jordan Walsh is only gonna get better and better and better. So like, I
They're gonna
think they'll
need
be able
Walsh
to
to be better. They gotta be
for
Walsh
sure.
needs to better. He needs to step up.
For sure. Yeah, offensively, he's gonna have to give him a little bit more. But I think just like I mentioned earlier, like he's a freshman, he's still trying to figure it out amongst a team that has nothing but guys that can score the rock. So he got to kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
find his niche and figure out where he stands on that team. But I think they'll be fine, man. Again, like it, in my soul, I just cannot count out Eric Musselman, man. And with this team, this is arguably the most talented team this definitely is, excuse me, the most talented team he's had since being in Fayetteville. So I think they'll be able to weather, especially in the SEC. Like SEC hasn't looked necessarily great; they've been good. So I think he'll be able to kind of figure it out and piece it together as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right because they have, like I said, Ricky Council, Black, Walsh, Nick Smith just came back, and Nick Smith,
Mhm,
balled out in the last game. So I think they'll be all right. I think it's a tough loss,
for sure.
definitely a tough loss, and that definitely hurts. But I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be all right, and because they just have so much. And like you said, they got Muss. Muss is gonna figure it out, and I think they'll be all right. So that sucks. He's just so much Brazil, and we had talked about them, before, with Ramon and all that, and like when we had Ramon on and all, but like he's fun to watch, and you want to see those
Mhm,
guys at the big stage and all that, and it felt like, especially in the Maui, like he was feeling himself, and that was a good thing to see and all that, and we knew like, oh, if he gets if he gets the minutes and all that, like he's gonna show out, and he's gonna be, an X factor for this Arkansas team, and we saw that. We're like, oh, if he's on this Arkansas team, how do you beat them if every and then one they didn't have Nick Smith yet, So it's unfortunate. It feels like they get one guy back, they lose a guy, and it's just like, but getting Nick Smith back is huge for them. And like I said, if you get George Walsh gets more comfortable, he only played 8 minutes last game and all that, gets more comfortable, they get him going, which I think they will. Like I said, every freshman, and that's something we should talk about too with freshmen and all that. And then I got one more topic before we get into talk about freshmen and all that. Just got to be more patient. We got to be patient with freshmen. Everybody, oh, he ain't good and all. Be patient with freshmen. All right. One last thing before we get into all the freshmen and all that. Let's give me a team, under the radar team, that doesn't even have to be not a power six team. Someone super under the radar that we should be talking about a lot more.
The Wisconsin Badgers, man. Um, Honestly, I wasn't like being a fan of the Big Ten. Like you never really count them out because you just know they're always consistent. Like they always finish, in the top half of the Big Ten. But actually watching them, especially with losing guys like Johnny Davis and Brad Davison, who feel like was there for a million years, like this team is really, really good, man. For them to go into Marquette, which is of course the state rival school, and beat Marquette the way that they did, like for those of y'all that don't know, Chucky Hepburn is a player, and he's
Mhm.
really, really, really good. Last year, they really only used him just to play defense as a freshman, but he knows and he's found his spots, and I think that's been huge for them. They also went and beat Maryland. Maryland's been one of the hottest teams in the Big Ten so far this season, and they beat them. Um, I won't say convincing, but they beat them in a dogfight. And just like the way this team looks, like Connor Esigian, I don't even know how you pronounce it. Really good player. Like I had no expectations from this guy. Like they're just figuring it out. And Max Klesmit, another guy. Like they always have these guys that just know their role and they appreciate
Mhm.
it. They don't need to score a lot. Like they don't play a flashy brand of basketball. Like y'all don't even know how much it pains me inside right now to give praise to Wisconsin. But because I love the game and I appreciate the game, I am going to give them this praise. So like they just play a pretty good style of basketball. They always play defense. I never question their defense at all. And so like you look at other guys like Tyler Wall, he was the Robin to Johnny Davis's Batman last year. And I think this year he's only going to continue to get better and better. So again, like I don't like giving Wisconsin credit whatsoever, but I feel like you just have to. Greg Gard is a pretty good coach. Like, so, shout out to the Badgers, man. I think they starting to really kind of, make some noise. I think they're only going to get better and better, in my opinion, as much as I do not want to admit that.
Yeah, yeah, and that Big Ten. It's hard to like give love to another team in your own conference. It's hard to that. But we gave love to Virginia Tech and all
Mhm.
that, NC State. So we show love. We show love and get a bucket. Get a bucket. Also, get a bucket is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, the number one place for all your ticket needs. College basketball season right here. Go get yourself some college basketball tickets. All you gotta do is use the promo code Off the Ball Network. You get $20 off. It's promo code Off the Ball Network. Like I say, you want to go college basketball? We got bowl season and then the national championships in college football. You want to save a few dollars, NBA games, whatever, concerts, opera, whatever you want. Go to SeatGeek.com, your number one place for all your ticket needs. Promo code Off the Ball Network. Okay, so I know I was going to talk about freshmen, but I want to talk about Louisville. Speaking of ACC, talk about Louisville. Man. Okay. I know it's easy to just harp on Louisville. They're bad. They're really bad. No, they're not just bad. They're like, it's all time bad. And it's all time bad because it's not a program that should be this bad at all, right? And you feel for Kenny Payne. And we talked about this before, like when they first started. I think we talked about 0-3, and we're like, oh, it should get better, right? It should get better, right? They should have a win by the next time we talk about them, right? Kev, they don't have a win yet. And they just got spanked by Miami. Now, they are playing another struggling team next in Florida State, so things could change. Things could change. They could have it is the mid-off bowl right here. But we preach patience, right? And that teams need to be patient with coaches and all that. But let me ask you this. If you're the AD in Louisville right now, and this continues where you're getting, not just losing, you're getting spanked by 15, 20 points. Like, just going through their last 6 losses. 27. They lost by 27, 25, 19, 42. Wait, 32, 26. And then they lost by 1 to App State. And then, the close losses, right? Because we were like, they lost by 1 point, and I think they had combined 3-point losses, 3 points that they lost by total in their first 2. So we're like, all right, they lost, but they only lost by a point. And then ever since there, it's just been shellackings and all that. If it continues, do you consider fire Kenny Payne after 1 season? Because this is bad, and it doesn't seem like it's getting. He doesn't have a lot. No, he doesn't have talent. Let's be real. He doesn't have a lot of talent, and he should be running to the portal like crazy. The minute the season ends, and the second that you can mess with the portal, you go in, because people, there's going to be a bunch of kids going in the portal. You need to grab a whole lineup. You need to start a lineup to get this thing going. But in college, obviously, college basketball, you got to be patient. But man, and I heard some people talking about this is why I'm bringing them up, because I heard some podcasts and all that talk about like they would consider one and done in Kenny Payne and all, and he's still smiling and all that. Like he's still like. And it's crazy how, the tough losses and all that, you could still be positive and all that. And I love Kenny Payne, who coached the Knicks and all that. And that's probably a big why we're struggling, because missing him, that was big. And Coach Woodson too. But would you if it goes this bad, and let's say they win 1 ACC game and they 3-4 wins, but all of the losses, do you consider firing Kenny Payne? Is that something that we should be thinking about in year 1?
As much as I hate to admit this, I think you do, because my 2 things are this. Like you kind of said, like I knew they weren't going to be able to get that much talent for this season because, recruiting classes is already wrapped up. The class 2022 was already firmly committed and things like that. But you could have gotten some more guys from the transfer portal. Like, let's be honest here. Like, it's thousands of dudes that go into the transfer portal. Somebody would have loved to have played for Louisville. They would have taken pride in playing and representing the Louisville Cardinal program, right? That's 1. 2, and this is kind of what I skipped over that last time we talked about Louisville. That coaching staff is not acceptable whatsoever for y'all to have 0 wins up until this point of the season. With Kenny Payne, Nolan Smith, and Danny Manning.
And Nolan Smith left Duke to take this for an opportunity to possibly be head coach. down the line.
Exactly. And he probably will be if things kind of get going in the right direction. But those last two names that I mentioned between Danny Manning and Nolan Smith, both those guys are more than qualified to being head coaches at high major programs right now. Danny Manning was the interim coach at Maryland just last season when Mark Turgeon just kind of quit early in the season, right? And I'm looking at it like with those three names I just mentioned, it's not too many coaching staffs that you can name that are better than them. Just them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest issue is that I understand I talked about the lack of talent is blatant, obvious, and vibrant, right? But you have a coaching staff that should be more than capable of somehow figuring it out. And granted, everybody's still trying to figure it out. They're all in kind of different roles, and I guess, the team is still figuring it out. But it's at a point where, as you're Louisville, right? You look just as bad as Cal Berkeley. You know what I'm saying? And Cal Berkeley's the only other team I believe that's a high major program with 0 wins right now. And I'm looking at it like Cal Berkeley is one thing. Like they don't really they're in 2022 and they still don't really care about their athletics because they're all about their academics.
Yeah, yeah.
You're Louisville, bro. You're Louisville. You're the Louisville Cardinals, one of the richest histories in the game of college basketball. And I'm praying for Denny Crum, by the way. I seen he's going through some health issues. Legendary coach out there. But when it just comes to where they are right now, it's bad. But the good thing is, literally, it can't get any worse than what they're at right
It
now.
really
That's the
can't.
only good thing from this.
It
So,
really
like,
can't.
um, I don't know, man. Like, I think you have to consider it, but you also got to give it time because, again, we're not even halfway through the season. You got to kind of see where things play out from there. But right now, Louisville faithful is not looking good whatsoever, and I'm hoping they turn it around somehow.
But like you said, like just look at the coaching staff. Like Danny Manning is a legend, right? As a legend, and you said it was just at Maryland, and what he was coaching at Wake, right? Was he at
Yep.
Wake Forest?
Yep.
And even though he has success there, but he has head coaching experience. And Nolan Smith is from the Duke, the Coach K tree, and you know left Duke, to go to
Or
Louisville
Louisville.
for
Yep.
for a bigger opportunity, especially when Shire took over, so you would think, Kenny Payne has a history. We know Kenny Payne's history in the league, in the NBA and at college. You just don't. But it feels like they made a lot of mistakes preseason, and and that's going to hurt you. You don't have players. I don't care how good of a coach you are, man. Especially in college, man. You don't got hoopers. You ain't gonna do good. And I think he definitely made a mistake not attacking the portal. And like you said, if he gets, I hope he does get another shot. I hope he does get year two, and they're able to fix this thing up, because I think doesn't have talent, but let him get another year to learn from the mistakes. He is a first year coach. Let him learn from mistakes and figure this thing out. But he's gotta hit the portal hard, hard. You may not be able to get the recruits, the 4 stars, and but hit the portal is going to be flooded. It always is. It's going to be flooded. Attack that thing. Get your help. You can get a whole new roster and all that, and the thing could be on the come up. It's and then that helps recruiting, because it is Louisville at the end of the day. It's Louisville, So I hope it, but if it does continue, I mean, I wouldn't blame them but they have to have a candidate in mind. Like they got to have like a Deion Sanders like waiting. Like it's got to be something like that. Like they have to have a coach like that.
Exactly. And right now, like in the state that they're in, they cannot afford to make a move out of desperation because
Yeah.
you've already been down for the past couple years. You don't want to be down any longer. So that's why I'm under the impression like give KP his time. If he don't figure it out, then that's one thing. Like if it stays on this current trend, then yeah, like I can't get mad at you. But if you start to see a little life and you start to see a little fight out of this team, even if they're not necessarily winning games, but you're just starting to see that they're playing for their coach and their coach,
Mm-hmm.
the players are bought in, then it's like okay, you're seeing the positive returns. Right now it's just like they're abysmal. Like they're not watchable by any means. Like I don't like people were talking about when they were in Maui, like, oh, turn on the Texas Tech and turn on the Arkansas game. Like, I don't want to watch that's bad basketball. Even though those other two teams are good, I don't want to watch them at all. Like they're just not they're not they're not good basketball right now. So again, like I said, I'm hoping the best for Kenny Payne because I have faith in him. I do, even though it's in the worst possible state it could be right now. I want to give him time because also too, like we got to remember too, this is KP's first college head coaching gig. He's been an assistant. He's never been a head coach. He's never been in that first seat. So that's why it's kind of like he's like John Shire and Kyle Neptune. He got to take his lumps and losses and figure it out and see where he can go from there to really respond and get this thing going in the right direction. So we'll see, man.
If you just look at their stats as a team, I think there's 300 and whatever 70 college
Yeah, like
D1
63, I
teams,
think. Yeah.
right? 360 around that range.
Yeah.
They're 330 and up and like
Yeah.
all made like 3-point percentage. I'm gonna give you exact because it's wild. They're 342nd in 3-point shooting, 2-point shooting. So anything mid range or at the bucket, obviously 335. The turnover percentage is literally 350. There's only 5 more teams worse. and think about the teams that like we would expect, like the whatever Presbyterians and the schools that like that are never like that aren't in a Power 6 conference. Effective field goal percentage at 350th. Adjusted field efficiency 337th. Like literally, and on defense they let everyone score. They're 300 and like 40th and like giving up 2 points. And like 200th and 3, like it's just all bad. And if it continues, I can't blame them for firing, but man, it's definitely bad. It's definitely bad. All right. So one more thing before we sign off. Appreciate everyone who's listening to the podcast. Like we said, Get a Bucket Podcast, episode 7. So let's finish it off. Give me some freshmen that are impressing you so far. And I want to go first. I want to say, my boy Cam Whitmore.
Mm-hmm.
He's a dog. He's got the dog in him. That's all.
Big dog. Emphasis on dog, like
big dog. And that's why we were not tripping over Villanova yet till we see Cam play, and then it's all the way. But there's a lot of good freshmen, bro. There's a lot of good freshmen, and some that have had some slow starts, some that were that preach patience, right? And this is the one thing I want to mention, guys. You see, especially in the draft space. Oh man, this guy he doesn't have it. I'm like, he doesn't have it. He's only like how many games in? Like we let's not do this. Let's not play that game. We got to be patient. I think people forget that, like some of these kids are 17, 18, like kids at the end of the day. I think people forget that, like, because we see them on all the highlight reels and Ball is Life and Overtime and Bleacher Report and all this, that we expect them to come into college and just dominate from the jump, right? And sometimes we get spoiled from like the Zions and all that who come in and just absolutely dominate from the jump, 100%. Right?
Yep.
And we expect, man, this number one kid should be dominating. Like Derek Lively should be dominating from the jump and all that. But it's just like, no, everybody goes at their own pace and all that. And like Dylan Mitchell has been up and down and all that, but he's had a couple good games. Keontae is another one. I love Keontae. I absolutely love Keontae and all that. And like we're seeing Nick Smith come back. But give me some freshmen that you're liking right now.
I think the one that, it's 2 of them on the same team actually. One, honestly, I did not think he was as good as he is, and the other, I knew he was good. I just wanted to see it. One is Malik Renaud, both at Indiana. He was at Montverde a year ago playing for Kevin Boyle, that stacked Montverde team. Like, he just has excellent
stacked.
Exactly. Like, he just has the footwork. He plays poised. He's never rattled by any means. Like, he looks like he's been in the Big Ten for the past 2 years. Like he looks like he knows what he's doing. He has a perfect role coming off that bench. Like, he just compliments everybody on that team so nice. And at 6'8", that power forward spot where he can just do so many things. He can pass. He's a lob threat. Like, he's impressed me a lot. Again, I'll be honest. Like, I did not think he was that good. And I'm here to say I can admit when I'm wrong. And he's been really good. And the other one on that same team, Jalen Hood-Schifino, man. Originally from Pittsburgh, was actually supposed to go and play at Pitt for Jeff Cable before he decommitted and decided to go to Indiana. He's been hurt for the past couple of games, but, man, at 6'5" point guard, that pull-up jumper is just so smooth. The jumper is nice. His head is always on the swivel. He's dropping dimes. Like, another one, plays poised. Like, he always has a calm and collected face. Like you never see him get too high or too low. Like
Mhm.
he kind of got that Derrick Rose face where you never know how he's feeling inside. Like and yeah, man, like I've been super impressed with him. And again, like I don't want to keep tuning this horn either, but like Kyle Filipowski, man, another one. Like
Yes.
I wanted to watch him because he ended up getting COVID in the EYBL a year ago. And his team went to I think the Final Four before they took him off because he had COVID. Nobody was trying to risk it back then, and I didn't really get to see him play. And so like I kind of always wondered like what could this guy be, right? And this year, like I keep saying it, like he looks like they say he's 7 feet, but he looks like he's like 7'2". Like he's so lanky, like his arms is long as hell, legs long, like he just looks lanky as he looks fake almost. He looks like a made up character, and like just his game, man. Like again, the one dribble pull ups, the catch and shoot,
Yes.
like being
It's the
able to clear off
skill.
the bounce,
Yeah, it's that
a
skill that
skill
he
that you
is.
can't
Yeah.
teach for that height. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to
Mhm.
really put in the work for yourself. And so like it's been some other freshmen again, Jaden Epps at Illinois, like he's not the starter. And I thought he was going to start going into the season over Sky Clark, but he's coming off the bench. I think it's even better for him because kind of like Jeremy Roach, like he doesn't have to run the show. Like Jeremy Roach early on when he got to school, he didn't have to run the show. He just kind of had to fit in, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't have to run the show. He can just score. Like Sky Clark has to run the show, and he gets a little bit of help from Matthew Mayer, Coleman Hawkins, and other guys. But Jaden Epps just comes to the game. He can just be himself. He can just be a bucket getter. He hit 2 clutch free throws to send the game to overtime. Like I love everything about. He is going to be Illinois fans. Enjoy him while y'all can because I don't think he's going to see his junior year. Like I think
No.
he's going to be in the league before that. So that kid right there, man, he's a dog. Brad Underwood ain't got no option but to plan because he gonna come through when you need him the most every single time.
Yeah, I mean, there's this endless amount of freshmen. We saw Brandon Miller just take over.
Man,
That, and I know people were kind of like on him because of some of his like finishing skills and all that, but I'm like, he could work on that. Like, but
exactly.
that man could take over a ball game, and we saw that, especially in the Carolina game. Like, so like he to me he has a special trait that I don't. I know that maybe guys maybe a little bit better that maybe go higher than him, but there's something about him that I'm like, that's gonna be like that player that people are gonna pass on, like Ben Matherin. Like, damn, man, maybe we should have took him at 2 and
Hmm.
like it's just I don't know. That's just the feeling I have when I watch him play. Like, and I see people down on him, and I saw a lot of criticism. Like I just feel like sometimes people are too nitpicky,
Yeah,
like as if like okay, he's not a kid and he's trying to figure out stuff. Like, but like, and people just want to like oh well he can't do this at the next level. It's like, well yeah he can, he just trying to he got to figure things out. Like it just too much. Like I feel like he was getting very picked apart, even though he's the reason why he took over. And to me at the end of the day, like you need a guy who could take over a game, and he's shown that at Bama. Like he's shown that, and then they have so I something about him, like I feel like he's a guy that, I know people fall in love with the Thompson twins at OTE, and it's like
hmm
I feel like he's gonna be the one where you're like, damn, I know the Thompson twins, they got bounce and all that, but man, that Brandon Miller, man, we should have, we took too much trying to look for the ultimate upside in Thompson twins, but I don't know, something about him, and Keontae too is starting to hoop too, you know,
yes,
like Kason, there's so many. Kason Wallace is another one, obviously, Bam, Arkansas, with Anthony Black and Nick Smith. Once Nick Smith's still going. I mean, it's crazy because we all know like it's Wemby, it's Scoot. That third spot's up in the air. Like everyone has a different, it's all about your essentially your flavor,
yep,
your type of prospect and all that. Because I've seen Nick Smith, you see Keontae, you see Brandon Miller, you see one of the Thompson kids, and all that. It's a bunch, but there's so much talent. There's so much and it's gonna be fun to see once we get into conference play and all that, and the games, could go up another level and all that. I would see these guys, rise up and all that. But and then Cam Whitmore, I think Cam Whitmore he's special. he might
exactly.
be able to carry Nova. I mean, that's the best. When was the last time Nova had a freshman like this. Do you
I'm
remember?
not gonna compare him, but I seen someone say that he's the best freshman they've had since Tim Thomas.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did hear someone say that. I don't know where I heard it, but yeah, Tim Tom. I mean, that's a while ago too. That's mid-90s.
Yeah.
I was on 95, 94, right? Yeah, he
Mhm.
came out 96, 97. Yeah,
Yep.
so yeah, and Tim Thomas was that dude coming out. I mean, we all hear the
Yeah.
story. Kobe was like, yo, I'm trying to be better than Tim Thomas. Tim Thomas was like, and I'm more player in the country coming out. So, I mean, Nova has, a lot of, a lot of upside going in when they get him back and all that. But he just he's got everything you want, self creation, all that. The language, 6'8",
Thank you.
shoot off the dribble, all that. There's just so much talent, that even you can get a steal in the second round. And that's why, like, talking to the NBA is like, when was the last time in the NBA people valued second round picks?
It's called evolution, people. The
It's
game is only going to
crazy.
get better and better. The talent's only going
It's
to get better and better.
the evolution of basketball is crazy. It's crazy, and it's not too long ago where guys like Jahlil Okafor were coveted, and that's just
Mhm.
2015,
Yep.
right? 2015 was a Jahlil.
Hmm.
2014, 2015, around that
Yep.
time. That wasn't too long. That's only 6, 7 years ago, where it was like, oh, you need a back to the basket guy and all that. And nowadays, it's like Jahlil Okafor's in the G League, and it's like those type of players. And then so we talked about UNC, like you gotta coach. If Coach K can see, and I know Coach K did not want to go with this trend. They're not going to go with a one and done trend. He liked the 3 to 4 year guys, and he liked his Sheldon Williams and those type of
Hmm.
players, his Jahlil Okafers and all that. But even with Jahlil, like Jahlil, he knew one and done and all that. Like that evolution. Like you got to be able to come to terms, and that's why some of these coaches they're like, I'd rather just retire. I can't do it. I mean, like not a lot of coaches are willing to adapt to the new era of basketball. And that's the thing that we're gonna see with Thad Matta. Like, can Thad Matta do it? Butler? Butler's been playing all right now. 6-3, right? 7-3, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's because last time he coached was 2015, 2016, around that time. If you can, go with the evolution, you can last in college basketball. I know it's not what most coaches want. You got to be able to with the freshmen that are coming in and the talent that is coming in these few years. You got to be able to adapt. If you don't adapt, it's like just like in life. You don't adapt to life, you're gonna be stuck. And
Yep.
if you don't adapt, it's gonna be a problem in college. But you got, Coach K wound up doing it, and that's why. We just talked about UNC before, man. Maybe that that they're not going after those kids no more, and those kids are not maybe not looking at UNC the way they're looking at Duke and some of these other programs, the Texases and all that. You see recruiting monsters now. So got to come with the times, man. It's got to come. I know it's hard to be a college coach, man. Recruiting and all that. I
Man.
can imagine that. Like, not only do you got to worry about coaching your guys on the court, but you have to coach them off the court because you're like, oh man, I can't. I got to coach them because they on the transfer portal. And then I'm like, oh, we got to recruit. Man, that's why like sometimes like you coaching the pros, like, all right, I just coach whoever, and then that's it.
Yep.
Because
Hmm.
coaching in college seems stressful.
Non-stop, 24/7. You don't get no vacations either.
No, because you got to worry about kids flipping. Like, wait, what happened? You,
Yep.
you trying to flip? Oh shit! Now I got to recruit him again. And like, it's like, all right, how much money we gave him? $2 million, man. The fuck? We gotta, we boosters are gonna be mad at us. We don't got like it's wild. Like I can't imagine trying to coach in like today and just trying to recruit and then it's crazy. And then new roster every year. You got to coach new players every year. Like that's wild. That's wild. It's tough. I feel some for these coaches, but you got to evolve. You got to evolve.
Mhm.
You got to evolve. And if you don't, you're gonna be getting get fired. You're gonna be fired,
Simple.
and you're gonna be on last chance you or something like that. Not a bad gig. You'll be in JUCO or something and all that. It's crazy times, crazy times. But Kev, episode 7, get a bucket. Conclusion. That was another great show, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Much love.
Yeah. Episode 7 in the books. Like I said, it's been a fun ride doing this, and we got a lot more in store for you. I don't know any games on the schedule today. I didn't even check the schedule and all that.
Yeah, I mentioned her. We got Iowa State. It's a few
Iowa.
Big Ten conference matchups too. I'm looking forward to. So it's a good Thursday night slate tonight.
Nice slate of games on store for you guys, and we'll try to get back this time next week for another Get a Bucket episode 8. But you can follow me off the ball pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure to follow the Off the Ball Network on YouTube. We're almost at 300. You know, just keep subbing, keep liking, get that algorithm going so we can get a thousand. So you know, so we could get this thing growing and growing. And Go to offtheballnetwork.com. Go make sure to check out SeatGeek if for tickets and all that. And go follow Twitter, Off the Ball Network on Twitter, OTB_network on Twitter. Kev?
Y'all know, man, at Easy Money Kev 7 on Twitter, at Young_Simba_2100 on Instagram. And as always, man, appreciate y'all. Shout out to Off the Ball. Appreciate you, Chris. We're only gonna keep going up. And y'all have a good rest of y'all week, man.
Yep, only going up here. Another Get a Bucket next week. Appreciate you guys. Be well, be safe, take care.